Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's David and I'm a gardener. Today I wanted to talk to you about something a little bit different. This is one of my favourite houseplants and I have had one of these for years and years and years, and I think I always will because it's just such a beautiful, delicate plant. This is the Lace Fern, which you can understand, you know, it gets its name because the fronds look quite lacy. Its Latin name, however, is Asparagus setaceus, and it is what is commonly called one of the asparagus ferns. There is another one which I'm going to show you in a little bit. They're members of the asparagus family, and the asparagus family are a member of the lily family. They don't flower in a domestic environment. They do in the wild, but we just can't provide the right conditions for them here, so they tend not to flower. But they are grown for the foliage, and I think if you look at it, it almost looks a little bit like a mini tree, like a bonsai tree almost, you know, with its canopy and its stems growing. I think it's absolutely stunning. Now, as much as they are typically called asparagus ferns, it's a misnomer. And this is one of the reasons why Latin names are so important. We call it a fern because it looks like a fern. However, it flowers, which automatically means it's not a fern. So the plant kingdom is split into three categories. You have the flowering plants, which is everything from your annuals, your perennials, your biennials, and the technical name for them is angiosperms. You have conifers, which produce cones, and that's how they reproduce. And you have true ferns, which reproduce by growing spores on the bottom of their leaves. Now, because this does flower, it cannot be a fern. But we call it a fern as one of the common names just because it has a fern-like appearance. But for specification, it's important that we're able to use the Latin names to define exactly what a plant is and what family it exists in. Now, with this one, as I said, it's called the lace fern, but it's not. It's an asparagus. It's just an absolutely stunning one. Now, they don't like drafts, and they don't like to be too close to a radiator. They don't like direct sun, so they just want somewhere bright and somewhere humid. So it works really, really well if you've got a bright bathroom or a bright kitchen or something like that. Now, I actually keep this one upstairs, and it's been living by a window, and you can see from these little brown bits where I've had the window open and a bit of wind has been blowing in, it's actually got a little bit of wind burn, and that's what it means when I say that they don't really like drafts. So if you want to keep it looking green and lush and healthy, keep it somewhere away from drafts and away from radiators, keep it well watered, it likes a humid environment, and it doesn't like direct sunlight. And if you follow those rules, you can very easily have a stunning plant. So I grow this as a house plant, and so it lives in a decorative house pot, one of these ceramic house pots that has no holes in the bottom. However, as with all of your houseplants, they should be grown in plastic nursery pots because they have drainage holes in the bottom. Now, the reason for that is that when you water it, you want to create moist soil, but you don't want it sitting in water. As you can see, the roots at the bottom of the pot here, it actually probably needs repotting. But because the roots are at the bottom of the pot, if you water it while it's in its house pot, all of that excess water sits in the bottom and you're going to cause root rot, which will just kill the plant. So the best thing to do is pop this in a sink or in the bath or take it outside, give it a really good water, leave it for 10 minutes to let all of the excess water run out the bottom, and when it stops dripping, you can pop it back in its house pot and pop it back in its place. Happy days. So I'm just going to give this quick water now with the hose, fill it up to the brim, let all of that water soak through, and keep going until you see water pouring out the bottom of the pot. That way you at least know that the soil is fully saturated, and you've got nice moist soil for the roots to soak up that water. And I do this pretty much once a week. Show you now. See, we've got nice drip out the bottom, and rather than that collecting in the house pot and creating root rot, in actual fact, by leaving it out here, all of that excess water can run off. So I'm going to leave that now for about 10 minutes, and then it'll be good to pop back in the house pot. Once a month, or every third or fourth water, I will give it a fertilizer feed. So I tend to just use a water soluble feed, an all-purpose one, which is important because the soil that is in these pots can't recreate its own nutrients. So when you plant something in the ground, there's a whole ecosystem in the soil of worms and microbes and things like that that are breaking down organic matter and replenishing the soil with your nitrogen, your phosphorus and your potassium. When you use pots, you don't have that ecosystem to regenerate all of those nutrients, and so it's necessary to use a fertilizer to replenish that, to keep the plants looking as thick and healthy and luscious as possible. You'll notice actually when you get bags of multi-purpose compost, they often say on the front of them that they've got 6 or 8 weeks worth of nutrients in them, and after that time all of the nutrients are used up by the plant, and so it's up to us to replenish them. So once a month, every 4th water, I'll give them a feed, and it just keeps them looking nice and green and luscious. And I recommend that for all of your houseplants. Actually, to be fair, I'd recommend that for any plants that you've got in pots, whether inside or outside, because they don't have that ecosystem to be able to replenish their nutrients, so you have to do it. Okay, so given this water, left it for about 10 minutes now, and it's stopped dripping pretty much. So we can pop that back in its decorative house pot, and that's good to go back inside. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this one. This was me just showing a little bit of love to one of my favourites, the Lace Fern, or Asparagus setaceus. And if you guys are looking for a really beautiful, quite easy to look after, low effort plant, can't recommend these enough. So I said that there was another type, and this is it. This is the foxtail fern. It is classed as an asparagus fern. This is Asparagus densiflorus myersii. It's a stunning plant. As the new fronds grow in, they actually come through a little bit bronze, and then they go a light green, turn into a dark green. But exactly the same as with the Asparagus setaceus, they don't like wind and drafts, and unfortunately I live in quite an exposed area, and so you can see here where it's got a little bit of wind burn on it, and some of these sort of whiter bits, it's just caused by the wind burn. Now I grow the setaceus as a house plant, whereas this one I grow as an outdoor plant. However, it is a tender perennial, and so it has to be brought in during the winter, either into a conservatory or a heated greenhouse or something like that. But the rest of the year it lives outside, and it's absolutely thriving out here. Exactly the same conditions as the setaceus. It likes bright indirect light. It's not a massive fan of direct sunlight, and as you can see, it's not a massive fan of being in the wind, or in gardening terms, being in an exposed environment. It's a beautiful plant though, and again, this one does flower. They both produce white, tiny little white flowers if they're in fantastic conditions, which are followed by berries, both of which are toxic to humans and to pets, so just be careful if it does flower. But they do tend to be grown for their foliage, because it's such an attractive shape and texture, and the mix of colours that you get through it. You can see here there's actually a new growth which is coming through a little bit bronze, and then they turn lime green before heading into a darker green. Just absolutely stunning. Love them. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, please make sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and yeah, always a pleasure, never a chore, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.